It wasn't sudden, it aligned. Thoughts that twisted, slowly twined. A thread not sharp but growing taut, braided tight with every thought. She loved her sister's laugh, it's true, but painted loud her fibers too. A rope pulled tight between two shores, wanting less or wanting more. This is the thread through the eye, where the pull is soft but the stakes are high. Navigating pain that speaks in signs, emotions sprayed in darker lines. N for naming what still hurts, E for exits closed in spurts. Examining every means, D a draft inside her dreams. L the leaving done in signs, exploring where the end aligns. Through the needle, through the thread, the plan not spoken but softly said. She journaled walks, she lit old flames, but each attempt just fed the flames. What once gave hope now offered less, and safety slipped through her distress. She paused by ledges longer now, imagined endings, rehearsed the how. Not obsessed, just drawing close, as if the needle knew her most. Not all plans are written down, some float quiet, never sound. Look for the signs they never share, the missing dinner, the empty stare. Ask not why, but what for. What closed inside that open door? What have you tried and what has failed? What pain remains unrevealed? This is the thread through the eye, where intentions sharpen no goodbye. A quiet place of silent dread, where life hangs loosely by a thread. Noticing what she let go, the ending she rehearses slow. The edge she walks without a sound, the dates that circle round. L the loss she never names, the exit burning not in flames. Through the needle, through the skin, still a chance to pull life in. The same thread that once pierced deep may still be used to stitch and keep, but only if we see the sign and trace the pain that sits in line. Sit with her, hold the thread, and ask what still holds instead.
Good day and welcome back. This is Season 4, Episode 4, and you are listening to the Protect Suicide Prevention Training podcast, and we are working through Steps for Hope. If you have joined us before, thank you for staying with us, and if you're new, I'm glad you have found your way here. Today, we step into the third phase of the STEPS framework, needle, the moment where ideation begins to tighten into intention. In our last episode, we stepped into thread, the second phase of the STEPS framework, where suicidal ideation begins its quiet emergence. We didn't quite meet crisis. We met the whisper before the cry, a flicker of thought, a tired what if, the murmur of a mind beginning to wonder whether staying is worth the strain. We followed Ari's inner world as it moved between despair and resistance, between the ache to disappear and the quiet pull of what still mattered. A sister's laughter, a guitar gathering dust, a breath not yet surrendered. We learned that ideation doesn't arise from nowhere. It is the thread pulled when something has already frayed. And every thread tugs at meaning, because the pain this deep only grows where once there was care. To help us grace these early stirrings, we broke thread into 6 guiding strands. T for thoughts of suicide, often passive, gentle, but persistent. H for headspace of suicidality, the internal texture, fog, static, storm. R for recurrence and distractibility, Does the thread loosen or loop tighten? E for escalation in specificity, when vagueness gives way to detail. A for ability and desire to resist, the anchors that still hold. D for direction toward planning, when ideation gains shape, time, and place. We explored how to respond not with fear or interrogation, but with presence, with open questions, with attunement, with the courage to stay close even when the words are hard to say. Because this phase isn't about measurement, it's about noticing what's beginning to move and tracing the thread before it slips through the eye of the needle. And now, that's where we are. The thread has tightened. Intention begins to take form. We arrive at the needle. This is the turning point in our steps journey. Thoughts, pain, and possibility, once scattered like loose threads, begin to align, not haphazardly, but with quiet, dangerous precision, often silently. From the outside, things may seem unchanged, but inside, something fundamental is shifting. Intention is taking shape. And that's what Needle helps us trace. It's a way to follow that internal movement, not just with clinical logic, but with human presence. So let's walk through each part of Needle together, not as a checklist, but as a conversation that could save a life. We begin with N, navigating ambivalence. This is that inner tug of war between wanting to live and wanting the pain to end. For many people, both sides are present. As clinicians, our job here isn't to argue someone into staying, it's to honor both sides of that tension. I often find myself saying something like, it sounds like a part of you is completely exhausted, and yet another part, maybe just a thread, is still hoping something might shift. That's a double sided reflection. It gives space to the whole experience. You might ask, what parts of you still want to be here, even just a little? Or if those two parts of you could speak to each other, what would they say? These aren't trick questions, they are invitations. And even small hesitations, those flickers of life, are threads we can work with. From there, we move to E, excluding options. This is when alternatives begin to fall away. Suicide stops feeling like one option among many and starts to feel like the only one left. You might hear absolutes, nothing will ever change, or I've tried everything. That's not manipulation, that's despair closing in. So we get curious. When did other ways of coping stop feeling possible? What was the last thing that gave you even a glimmer of another path? And importantly, have you noticed times, even recently, when the pain felt slightly less intense? This is where we can use a bit of solution focused thinking, not to deny the pain, but to honor the exceptions, the moments, even brief ones, where life still had some wiggle room. Next come the second E, examining means. This is where thoughts turn to specifics, the how, the when, the where. For someone in this space, the idea of suicide becomes more structured. Planning begins. It's essential we explore this openly, but with care. We might say, I want to understand what's been on your mind, not because I'm here to take control, but because I want to stand with you in it. Then we ask, what about that method made sense to you? Or have you thought about how accessible it is? If the answer is yes, that tells us the thread is tightening. This is also where lethal means counseling becomes critical, not as a rule book, but as an act of care. We can explore together what would it mean to make it even slightly harder to access that right now. Who could help with that? And we do this gently, collaboratively, not as restriction, but as safety scaffolding. Then comes D, drafting an exit. This is the quieter phase of preparation. Someone might start organizing their life in subtle ways, canceling plans, tidying up affairs, making lists. Often they don't even realize what they are doing until later. Here we are listening for the story behind the steps. Looking back, were you preparing for something even if it didn't feel final? Were you trying to make things easier for someone else? These aren't accusatory questions, they are compassionate ones. They help uncover the emotional meaning behind the actions. Because even in drafting an end, there's often a desire for control, for peace, maybe even for dignity. And that's something we can explore and hold together. Then we arrive at L, leaving subtle signs. This is where the goodbyes begin. Not always loud, but deeply symbolic. Giving things away, withdrawing, posting something that hints at closure. These aren't always cries for help, but they are communications, silent ones. Sometimes the only kind a person feels capable of. You might ask, were there things you did or said that now feel like they carried more meaning than you realized at the time? Or were you hoping someone might notice without having to say it out loud? Again, the goal isn't to interpret, it's to invite the person to reflect, to revisit those moments, and maybe discover that part of them still wanted to be caught. And finally, we reach the last T, exploring the exit. This is perhaps the most delicate place to stand with someone. It's where they have gotten close. Maybe they visited the place. Maybe they wrote the note. Maybe they stood at the edge and then turned back. That moment of stepping back matters. We must treat it with reverence. What helped you pause, we might ask? What stopped you just for that moment? Was there fear? Was there relief? Was there still a part of you that didn't want to go? Rehearsal, suicide rehearsal, is a powerful risk marker because someone's come up to the precipice of death, to the edge of death, and they have turned around. But it's also a place of potential pause. The edge can be a place where threads break or where we can offer a new one. So, as you sit with someone in this phase, I invite you to listen, not just for risk, but for rhythm, for the tempo of despair, for the pauses where possibility still breathes. Because Needle isn't just a map of planning, it's a diagnostic of despair. It shows us where the weave is tightening, but also where it may still be loosened. This is not the moment to rush, it's the moment to slow down, to honor the pain, to honor the thread, and if possible, to catch it before it slips through the needle's eye. Let's return to Ari. She didn't reach the needle in a single moment. It happened gradually, like a fog settling in. What once felt like a swirl of grief, shame, and exhaustion began to focus. The threads of her life, some still tethered to her sister, her memories, her music, pulled one way, but others, tugged tight by pain, pulled towards silence. This was navigating ambivalence. Ari didn't want to die, not entirely, but she was tired, tired of holding it all together, tired of trying. She told herself, maybe if I let go, the pain would stop. She felt like she was standing between two doors, one marked stay, one marked leave. But the door to staying felt heavier each day, and slowly the other doors, the safer ones, started closing. She had tried reaching out before. She had tried therapy, medication, gratitude lists, but nothing seemed to shift the weight. So, slowly, she stopped trying. She stopped asking for help. That's how excluding options set in. She told herself, I've tried everything, nothing works. This is the only way left. Then she began to look quietly, carefully. She searched online, read articles, watched videos. She walked past certain places and lingered. She began to picture how it might happen. This wasn't just thought anymore. This was examining means. It gave her a strange sense of control, not hope, not relief, but order. She didn't write it down, but she carried the plan inside her like a folded map. She picked a date, a time. She avoided making future plans. That was drafting an exit. Then came the quiet signs. She gave away her guitar. She told her housemate not to wait up for dinner. She unfollowed people she cared about. She sent a message to an old friend, not dramatic, just final. She was beginning to disappear. That's leaving subtle signs. And then, one night, she walked to the place she had imagined, sat, breathed, waited. The world around her went still. The plan was close. The needle hovered. But somehow the thread held. She turned back. That was exploring the exit. This is the needle phase. It's quiet, it's deliberate, and it is urgent. When someone is here, the pain has not only overwhelmed their world, it's begun to reorganize it, to shape plans, to erase options, to draft an ending. But even here, even now, there may still be space to hold the thread before it passes through the needle's eye. Because intention is not inevitability, it is motion, and motion can shift. So we ask, what thread still holds? What door might still open, if only slightly? And we offer the person enough presence, enough pause to find it. Next time, we enter the tip phase, the tipping point, where action becomes imminent. The tip of the needle ruptures through the fabric. But for now, here's a closing song. It's a song woven from Ari's breath-held moment, from the tension, and from the thread that, just this once, did not pass through.
It wasn't sudden, it lined. Thoughts that twisted, slowly twined. A thread not sharp, but growing taut, braided tight with every thought. She loved her sister's laugh, it's true. The pain had louder fibers too. A rope pulled tight between two shores, wanting less or wanting more. This is the thread through the eye, where the pull is soft but the stakes are high. Navigating pain that speaks in signs, emotions braiding darker lines. And for naming what still hurts, E for exits closed in spurts. E examining every means, D a draft inside her dreams. L the leaving done in signs, exploring where the end aligns. Through the needle, through the thread, the plan not spoken, but softly said. She journaled, walked, she lit old flames, but each attempt just fed the flames. What once gave hope now offered less, and safety slipped through her distress. She paused by legends longer now, imagined endings, rehearsed the how. Not obsessed, just drawing close, as if the needle knew her most. Not all plans are written down, some float quiet, never sound. Look for the signs they never share, the missing dinner, the empty stare. Ask not why, but what for, what closed inside that open door. What have you tried, and what has failed, what pain remains unrevealed. This is the thread through the eye, where intentions sharpen, no goodbye. A quiet place of silent dread, where life hangs loosely by a thread. Noticing what she let go, E the ending she rehearses slow. E the edge she walks without a sound. D the dates that circle round. L the loss she never names, the exit burning not in flames. Through the needle, through the skin, still a chance to pull life in. The same thread that once pierced deep may still be used to stitch and keep, but only if we see the sign and trace the pain that sits in line. Sit with her, hold the thread, and ask what still holds instead.